Hi, I'm Maxwell,
And I'm Caden.
And we are going to be reading Freckle Juice by Judy Blume.
I'll read up here.
This is going to be chapter 1. Andrew Marcus wanted freckles. Nicky Lane had freckles. He had about 1 million of them. They covered his face, his ears, and the back of his neck. Andrew didn't have any freckles. He had 2 warts on his finger, but they didn't do him any good at all. If he had freckles like Nicky, his mother would never known if his neck was dirty, so he wouldn't have to wash. And then he'd never be late for school. Andrew had plenty of time to look at Nicky's freckles. He sat right behind him in class. Once, he even tried to count them. But when he got to 86, Miss Kelly called, "Andrew, are you paying attention?"
Clear soap. Yes, Miss Kelly, Andrew said. Good, Andrew. I'm glad to hear that. Now, will you please pick up your chair and join the reading group? We're all waiting for you. Andrew stood up in a hurry. His reading group giggled, especially Sharon. He couldn't stand that Sharon. She thought she knew everything, picked up the chair and carried it to the corner where his reading group sat. You may begin, Andrew, Miss Kelly said. Page 64.
We're not doing that side. Yes, Miss Kelly, Andrew said. Good, Andrew. I'm glad to hear that. Nope, that is the wrong one. Andrew turned the pages in his book. 64, 64. He couldn't find it. The pages were stuck together. Why did Miss Kelly have to pick him? Everybody else had already had their books open to the right page. Sharon kept giggling. She covered her mouth to keep in the noise, but Andrew knew what was going on. He finally found page 64, right where it was supposed to be, between pages 63 and 65. If he had his own freckles, he wouldn't have to count Nicky Lane's. Then he'd hear Miss Kelly when she called reading groups, and nobody would laugh at him. Later, when the bell rang, Andrew poked Nicky Lane. "What do you want?" Nicky asked, turning around. "I was wondering about your freckles," Andrew said. "Oh yeah? What about them?" Andrew felt pretty stupid. "Well, how did you get them?" And this is them in their reading groups.
What do you mean, how? You get born with them? That's how. Andrew thought that's what Nicky would say. Some help me. Some he was. Line up, boys and girls, Miss Kelly said. Time to go home now. Sharon, you may lead the girls. Andrew, you may lead the boys. Some luck. Just when he got to be leader, had to stand next to Sharon. When they were in line, Sharon whispered to Andrew, "Psst, I know how to get them." How to get what? Andrew asked. Freckles, Sharon said. Who asked you? I heard you asked Nicky about this. Sharon ran her tongue.
Along her teeth. She was always doing that. "Do you want to know how to get them?" Sharon asked. "Maybe," Andrew told her. "It'll cost you 50 cents. "I have a secret recipe for freckle juice," Sharon whispered.
A secret recipe, huh? Sharon's tongue reminded Andrew of a frog catching flies. He wondered if Sharon ever got a mouthful of bugs, the way she opened her mouth and wiggled her tongue around. Andrew inspected Sharon's face. You don't even have freckles, he said. Look close, Sharon said. I've got 6 on my nose. Big deal. A lot of good 6 do. You can get as many as you want. 6 was enough for me. It all depends on how much freckle juice you drink. Andrew didn't believe Sharon for a minute. Not 1 minute. There was no such thing as freckle juice. Andrew had never heard it before.
Chapter 2. That night, Andrew had trouble sleeping. He kept thinking about freckle juice. Maybe the reason no one in his family had freckles was because no one knew the secret recipe. If they had never even heard of freckle juice, then how could they have any freckles? It figured. Andrew didn't like the idea of paying Sharon for anything, and 50 cents was a lot of money. It was 5 whole weeks of allowance. But he decided that if Sharon's recipe didn't work, he'd ask for his money back. It was easy. The next morning, Andrew turned the combination of his safe bank to the right numbers. 4 on top, 0 on the bottom. He took out 5 dimes. He wrapped them in tissue, stuffed the whole thing in his pocket. He didn't have time to wash his ears or neck or anything. He wanted to see Sharon before the last bell rang. Start by mom.
By Mom, Andrew called. Andrew Marcus? Wait a minute. His mother hurried over to him. She almost tripped on her long bathrobe. She curls in her hair, scratched Andrew's face as she checked his ears and neck. Please, Mom, I can't. We skip it just once, Andrew begged. Miss Marcus stepped away from Andrew. She pointed a finger at him. Okay, she said. I'll let you go this time. But tomorrow I'm looking again. Andrew zipped up your pants. Andrew looked down. Zippers were a pain. This afternoon, when you come, I'll be next door. Miss Burrs invited me over to play cards. You can come get the key from me, okay? Sure, Mom. Okay.
Andrew raced to school. He could hardly wait to see the secret recipe. First, he'd look at it, and if it didn't seem any good, he just wouldn't pay. Sharon was already at her desk when Andrew arrived. He went right over to her. Did you bring it? He asked. Bring what? Sharon opened her eyes real wide. You know what? The secret recipe for freckle juice. Oh, that. I have it right here. Sharon patted her pocket. Well, let's see it. Do you have the 50 cents? Sharon asked. Sure, right here. Andrew patted his pocket. I'm not going to show it to you until you pay, Sharon said. This is Andrew racing to school.
Andrew shook his head. Oh no, first I want to see it. Sorry, Andrew. A deal's a deal. Sharon opened the book, pretended to read. Andrew Marcus, Miss Kelly said, will you please sit down? The second the bell rang this morning, you'll be begging with... Nikki, please pass out the yellow paper. When you get your paper, beginning working on problems on the board. Andrew went to his seat. Then he took a tissue with 5 dimes out of his pocket. He held it near the floor, aimed down toward Sharon. She sat down in the next row. Sharon stuck her foot and stepped on the tissue. Then she slid it over until she reached it with her hand. She bent down and picked it up. Miss Kelly didn't notice. Sharon counted the 5 dimes. Then she took a piece of folded up white paper out of her pocket and threw it to Andrew.
It landed in the middle of the aisle. Andrew leaned way over to pick it up. but he lost his balance and fell off his chair. Everybody laughed, except Andrew and Miss Kelly. Miss Kelly sighed. "Oh, Andrew, what are you up to now? Bring me that note, please." This is a picture of Andrew attempting to catch the note.
Andrew picked up the secret recipe. He didn't even have a chance to see it. It wasn't far. It cost him 50 cents for nothing. He handed it to Miss Kelly. She read it. Then she looked up at him. Andrew, may I have this back? May I have this back? The 3 o'clock. She put it in her desk. I don't want this to happen again. Do you understand? Yes, Miss Kelly. Andrew mumbled. Good, now let's get that academic done. Miss Kelly wasn't bad. Andrew decided she could have ripped up the recipe or sent him to the principal's office, or even made him stand out in the hall by himself.
Andrew could hardly wait for 3 o'clock to come. He didn't bother counting Nicky Lane's freckles. Soon, he'd have his own. When the second bell finally rang and the class marched down the hall, Andrew went up to Miss Kelly. She held the piece of white paper and waved it at him. "Here's your note, Andrew. I have the feeling it's important to you, but from now on, you must pay attention in class." Andrew took the recipe from Miss Kelly. "After tomorrow, I won't have any trouble paying attention," he promised. "Just you wait, Miss Kelly. I won't have any trouble at all." This is Miss Kelly giving back the note.
Which one do you want, sister? Andrew ran all the way home. Then he remembered he had to go to Miss Burrow's house to get the key. The secret recipe for freckle juice was folded carefully in the bottom of Andrew's shoe. He was going to put it inside his sock, but was afraid if his foot got sweaty, the ink might burr and he wouldn't be able to read it. So inside his shoe was a safe enough. Even if it was windy, nothing could happen to it. He made his mind up not to read it until he got home. He didn't want to waste any time getting there, and he wasn't the world's fastest reader. Anyway, even though he'd gotten better since last fall, still there might have been some hard words that would take a while to figure out. Andrew passed Miss Burrow's doorbell. It's a picture of him running.